I'd like to begin with the Bible story. Jacob and Esau, okay, were the first twins of the Bible talked about in the book of Genesis, and they were the sons of Rebekah and Isaac. They were struggling, it is said in the Bible, even in the womb. They had an adversarial relationship. Esau was born first, and as a consequence, was entitled to the greater inheritance of his father's property. So the two grew up, and Esau became very external, very much out there. He was a hunter. He was a big guy. He was out there doing things and managing the estate and doing all these outward, external kinds of things. And he was his father's favorite. Jacob was more internal. He was within the tents. He was cooking. He was doing things with his mother. And he was his mother's favorite. Well, one time Esau came back into the tents and whatnot, and he smelled this delicious lentil stew that Jacob had made. He said, I want some of that stew. And Jacob said, I'll trade you for it. I want your inheritance. Esau said, sure, just give me some stew. So he had some stew. Well, then there came a time when Isaac was going to bless his eldest, and Jacob and Rebekah conspired so that Isaac blessed Jacob and not Esau. Now Esau found out about that, and he was very mad, and he threatened to kill Jacob. So Jacob fled. Well, now, years later, they reconcile and they come back together. Now, we hear a lot about Jacob because the descendants of Jacob were the 12 tribes of Israel. In fact, God renamed Jacob to the name of Israel, and he, therefore, was a descendant of all of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, there were many descendants of Esau as well. They were called the Edomites. And Edom was the city that for many years plagued Israel. So not a very happy sort of thing. Okay, so we go to Charles Fillmore, of course, co-founder of Unity, to understand what does this story mean. And he says that it is a subtle description of the soul and evolution. He said the soul is progressive, that the soul is always moving forward. We must move forward. The soul needs to expand, to grow. In fact, the whole Bible is a series of story after story after story of the progression of the soul. And what we refer to as the progression of the soul is the ever-increasing level of consciousness at which we live. So what Aesop represents, according to Charles Fillmore, is more of the materialism in our world. The perhaps our nature, but it's all about the materialism, about the estate, about what you have, so to speak. And he says that Jacob represents the mental science, that which is more about how one thinks, or working with more of a higher level of consciousness. And in fact, that is what Charles Fillmore says, that with the two, it was in fact Jacob who inherited. That Jacob was the one who was the ancestor of all of these great tribes of Israel. Because Jacob had stepped up. He had stepped up beyond the physical plane of just being and having. He now was becoming more aware. It was an elevation or an evolution of the soul. Now, in the story in the Bible, it goes on to say that Jacob had a dream. And I think we might all remember that, Jacob's ladder. Jacob's ladder. And what he dreamt were these angels that were going up the ladder into heaven and then descending back down to earth. Charles Fillmore says that what this represents is the ladder of the ever-evolving consciousness of humankind to a point where we reach that state of heaven. And you know what we mean by that, a consciousness that brings us one with all, with God, to that divine, and we are, that heaven is within us. And then the descending angels bring that back to earth, that we are called to share that information, to be with it. So the entire Bible is the story of the evolution of the soul. It's about consciousness. It's about us all evolving in consciousness. It's the principle of New Thought teaching. But so often we use the New Thought teaching in order that we might acquire more things or do more things or have greater success, and we're still on the first rung of the ladder. And it's all about moving up that ladder into a greater understanding, a greater awareness of who we are. Now, I believe, and I know that there are other New Thought leaders who believe this as well, that we are constantly being called to a higher level of consciousness. I recently heard a webinar by Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle, two of our major New Thought leaders, and they said the way to greater consciousness is through challenges. They both said that, okay? And they brought up an example. When you go to a movie and you come away from a movie and you feel good and you really like that movie. So more often than not, what happens at the beginning of the movie, the protagonist is faced with a major problem. Something goes awry. And the story is all about how that protagonist overcomes that problem, that limitation, that difficulty, whatever it may be, to a greater point of success. And they said that if the protagonist in the movie actually changes and becomes a better person as a result of that, it's a better movie yet. It's more inspiring. Think of some of the movies that you like. I mean, you know, all the classics like Star Wars and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, Avatar, all of those. And then there's so many others, you know. The one that came to mind for me was Baby Boom with Diane Keaton. You know, here is this woman who's very much in business, being a success and all this kind of thing, and she gets a baby. And through that whole movie, it was all about her coming to be a mother, coming to love, coming to appreciate things in a new and powerful way. And just by cooking, you know, applesauce for her little daughter, her new daughter that came into her life, all of a sudden she's creating a whole new gourmet food, and she actually rises back to a place of ultimate success where she's offered a, you know, $1 million job and can go right back into where she was. And you know, even in the movie, she says, "I'm back," and she no longer wants it because she's changed. So she has great success, but she's also found love, and she's found it in a new way, and she's come to know herself in a bigger and more powerful way, and she has risen on the ladder of consciousness. Now we celebrate those movies, and we like those movies because there's an archetype within each of us of our soul's evolution, pulling us upward and moving us into a greater expanse of consciousness. Joseph Campbell calls it the hero's journey. You know, that we all have that hero's journey, that we're all called to take that step. And what happens is we're faced with ourselves. We have to confront ourselves. We have to look at ourselves. We have to accept ourselves. We have to grow to love ourselves and overcome those challenges that are presented to us in order that we might rise up on the ladder towards greater and greater fulfillment of consciousness. So what Deepak and Eckhart said is welcome your challenges. Now, that's sometimes hard to do, is it not? You know, but if you think about it on an individual level, you're going to have challenges that are going to call you to rise above, to solve those challenges. Challenge, problem, limitation, whatever it may be, whatever you are encountered with, that is a calling That is a calling for you to step into a higher level of consciousness in order to resolve that issue, that problem, whatever that may be. So we are to welcome those challenges. Now think about what you've been doing here at the center. You've had many challenges since the retirement of your dear wonderful minister, Reverend Audrey. And look at what you've done with those challenges. I believe there is an evolution of the soul of the center that is stepping up and stepping into a greater sense of being, a greater community that's come together, as reflected by the wonderful, beautiful changes that I've seen since I've been here. Beautiful. Think about what's going on in our country. We have some difficulties. Okay? We are called to rise above them. We are called to rise our consciousness and pull it up. There's so many of us that are just really need to step above. Not to stay mired in the problem, but to step above it in some powerful way. So what happens when we have problems, it's like when you have to be aware of the problem, you have to acknowledge that there's a problem and deal with it. Sometimes it's a repeating pattern in life. Sometimes there's the lack of awareness. You may have a job with a difficult boss, and then you go get another job with a difficult boss. You may have a difficult relationship, and you go get another relationship with the same person. You seem to be, even though they look different, you seem to be the same person over and over again. You might be stuck in a rut of prosperity thinking that keeps you stuck in a certain way. Okay, those are problems. Those are a call. That is your soul calling you to step up into higher ground, to move up in your thinking, to evolve yourself into a higher place. Sometimes crises occurs that really can do that for us as well. It's the addict or the alcoholic that reaches rock bottom. Sometimes it's accidents or injuries that happen. Sometimes it's death. When my sister died, it was the most difficult, bar none, time of my life. And as I made that through, I came out on the other side, and that's when I truly began my spiritual path. So sometimes those things that are so difficult for us to understand why they're happening, it is your soul calling you to evolve to a higher level, whatever that may be, to that higher level of consciousness. Sometimes we go on, we keep thinking the same things, and we keep going after the same things, and we get focused like Asu on the material world. I was reading a book on Buddhism, and it was a master and a student talking about the various afterlife bardos of existence. And the student was particularly hung up on the hungry ghost. It's not understand this hungry ghost. And the master was trying to say it's when you cannot be satiated, when you keep trying to feed yourself with the same thing over and over again, expecting that you are going to change or be better fed or feel full. And the student still wasn't getting to give me an example. And in the book, the master said, okay, America. When I read that, I went, whoa. It's like I put the book down. I stepped back and I thought, wait. And then I had to ask myself, okay, in what way am I caught up in the materialism of our culture? What way am I caught up with this? To have more is always what I'm striving for. And in so doing, when we are constantly looking for more and looking for more, we are continually hungry. It's the hungry ghost syndrome. That's what I'm calling it now. And it's a great one when you keep looking to find satisfaction and fulfillment in something, you keep repeating it over and over again, and it's not there, and you're trying this, and you're trying that, and it's not there, and then it's time. It's the soul calling you to rise above. step above. To step above. So we have to change our thinking. Well, that's what we're all about, right? To change our thinking, to change our consciousness, and it's not easy, but I'm going to give you a little hint. And this is one of the things that I think you can do, that no matter what it is that happens, what we tend to do is evaluate it. It's good, it's bad. Stop evaluating. It's neither. It just is. Okay? And the next thing we tend to do is ruminate. Well, I would have said this, or I would have done that. Why didn't I say this? Or I did this well. I had that encounter with that person, or this or that. Or why is this happening to me? Or on and on and on. And we ruminate and we keep on, and it goes on. And then you want to tell your friends about it, and you want to tell your family about it, and you get on the phone talking about it and whatnot, and you ruminate and ruminate and ruminate. And you evaluate. And you look for support and help to ruminate and evaluate. So stop, evaluate. Now, this takes will, and that is your power of the mouse. Will, okay? You take that will and you say, wait a minute. Okay, this happened. I'm not going to evaluate it as good or bad. It just is. Now I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to ruminate. Do not ruminate. You can catch yourself and you say, stop it. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to ruminate. Now that doesn't mean we see everything as, oh, it's all good. I'm telling you, don't evaluate. It's not good or bad. It just is. Okay? Don't ruminate about it so that you can step forth and move into a higher level of consciousness. You might think about higher levels of consciousness as energy vibrations. Think of it as energy vibrations. Think of every rung on Jacob's ladder as a new energy, an energy that's bringing you closer and closer to your heart, closer and closer to that heaven within. It's a different energy. How do you raise your energy vibrations? You have so many tools available to you here that enable you to help you to do that. First of all, you've got to stop evaluating. You know, this happened. And don't go with, oh, you poor thing, what a victim you are. You know, what can we do? How can we help you? You know, it's like, yes, I'll take help, but not the poor thing bit. You know, in other words, we have to just accept what is and stop the ruminating. Begin to meditate, begin to pray, begin to ask for the guidance that will help you step higher. Changing your thinking so that you're not focused on the problem, now you're focused on the solution. Rather than, woe is me, I had an accident and it's the worst thing that ever could happen to me, is, well, okay, that's happened now. What can I do here to be with that, to change that? You focus on the solution, not on the problem. You look at where's the blessing in that. Sometimes you can find a blessing. What can I be grateful for? And you change your energy vibration so you can open up to higher levels of consciousness. This is so meaningful for me because I want to tell you about my journey. A year and a half ago, I had this incredible discontent within me. I just needed to change. I needed to do something. Something was calling me. I have to do something. You know, just this discontent. This wasn't working, and that wasn't working. I kept trying this and trying that, and things weren't working. I said, that's it. I'm divorcing myself of all my possessions. I sold my townhouse. I sold most everything that I own, and I took a truckload of stuff, and I said, I'm going west. And I went to Las Vegas. Now, there is a rationale for Las Vegas, but I'm not going to go into that. Nonetheless, you know, I was going to go out there and I was going to do weddings in the Bellagio. That's what I was going to do. Okay, I was all set and ready to do it. I got out there. Well, I got to Las Vegas in June. It was the hottest summer on record. Broke records in June, broke records in August. I've never experienced heat like that. I felt like I was in this alchemical cauldron boiling. Okay. I didn't know anyone. I I didn't know a soul, I didn't have any work, and so I was struggling to find my way, find my path. And of course, the first thing I did was I found a spiritual community. And I started to work with them and to be with them. And in order to actually do weddings in the Bellagio, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get a license out in Las Vegas. Not every Dick and Harry can do weddings out there. So I had to be affiliated with the church. I had to get the minister to do blah, blah, blah. I had to go through a new member class, religious science. I'm an ordained minister in religious science, but I had to take the new member class. Okay? I had to do all these things to kind of get to my place. Well, it was starting to come together. It was October 1st, and it was cool. It was nice out there. It was finally, the temperature was breaking. Now, since I was out there, one of the reasons I went out there is because I love to hike. And even in the hot summer months, I would get up at 4 in the morning to go out there before the sun would come up so I could go hiking in the mountains. And after 9 o'clock, it was unbearably hot. You couldn't hike anymore. So we go out with all these other, twilight hikers. And I did that, and then finally it was breaking, and October 1st, it was a glorious day, and I was scrambling down a mountain. Scrambling, we're jumping from rock to rock to rock. I was having the greatest time, and I loved it. I said, thank you. Finally, things will begin to shift and change. My foot got caught in a crevice. And I fell down, and I broke my ankle. When this happened, I saw a flash of white light, and I heard a voice. And the voice said, there is a divine plan in this. So I was sitting there. I said, okay, what could I say? Now I know there's a divine plan in everything. I know the divine order is always working, whatever, but at that moment, I couldn't see a divine plan. I thought, what in the, it's like, really? So, the first challenge was getting down the mountain, which was a very interesting challenge. And then there were so many other challenges that went along with that. I had to have surgery, and then I was living on a second floor apartment, and it was very difficult to negotiate, so I decided that I had to leave the apartment, and I had to go somewhere where I could heal and get help. Well, that was back here. So I came back here, and I stayed with my brother. And I brought with me a suitcase. Okay, I had the suitcase, and then I went for my brother, I went to stay with some friends. Brought my suitcase there, I went back to my brother's. And then I got, as I started to get better, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go back out to Las Vegas. I'd started a research project with this church. Said I need to finish that, and I need to find, where I'm gonna stay, what I'm gonna do, this and that, whatever. I didn't know. And I went, and I took my suitcase and I went out to Las Vegas. And then I finished my project and I said, now this is not where I'm supposed to be. I've got that sense. So I came back to Minnesota to stay with my brother. I want you to know something. I was homeless for 8 months. I did not have a home. I lived out of the same suitcase and with the same clothes for 8 months. I did not know where I was going to be, what I was going to do, what was going to happen. People told me they never heard me say, I don't know, so many times. I did not know. I had no idea. I said, I know this, there's a divine plan. I don't have a clue what it is. So I was homeless. I actually had an infection at one point where my whole body was burning up. And I thought, it was one thing to burn up in Las Vegas. Now I'm burning up in winter in Minnesota, with my body. And all through this is what I had to work towards. Patience. And I had to grow my faith. I had to grow my trust. And I said over and over and over again, God is my source. God is my source. God is my source. It was a long, arduous journey. I had to face aspects of myself. I had to face some repeating patterns that came through this, what was going on. I had to look at things. It was the deepest spiritual quest in the way that I have been on, because it just forced me to really get to that place where I had to trust completely that God is missing. When I came back, it's like, okay, I don't have a home. Where can I live? I hadn't worked for a year. I had, no income. You can't rent an apartment if you don't have an income. I went to all the various apartments. Now, I had sold my townhouse, so I had some cash, but I had no income. If you don't have an income, they won't rent to you. Well, okay, let me see, I'd get a mortgage. You can't get a mortgage without an income. And I actually thought at some point, I'm going to be homeless forever. What am I being called to do? I mean, I'm staying with my brother in his basement. It's like, okay, again, I'm called even deeper. Through the miracle of a reverse mortgage, I now own a Rambler, 3-bedroom Rambler in Golden Bay. And when this all came to pass, I was like, really? Really? I can get a 3-bedroom Rambler in Golden Valley through reverse mortgage, and I don't have a mortgage. I don't pay a thing. I have to pay taxes. I have to pay home insurance. I have to pay house maintenance. However, I am now, what's so interesting about my journey, and why I wanted to share this with you when I say it's a journey of the soul, is when I left, I was discontent. Now I'm okay with where I am. Now I'm okay with being here. Now I'm okay with doing what I'm doing. And in some strange, miraculous way, this wonderful journey has elevated me on one more step on my spiritual quest of greater and greater consciousness. So I invite you to think about your journey, where you are, what you're doing. What are your limitations? What are your challenges? What are your problems? Bless them and use them to step onto higher ground, to work it, to get there, till you really get there. And when you do, infinite possibilities